Hi, welcome to Everyday NLP Bites Season 3. For those of you that have not been watching or listening to earlier podcasts, my name is Florence Madden. I'm an NLP trainer and coach based in Cumbria in the north of England. I'm also the author of the Intention Impact Conundrum and the co-author of Everyday NLP. In this season of podcasts, I am in conversation with. I'm talking to people who have embarked on NLP training for their own interest, for work, and also people who are NLP trainers and coaches in their own right. And I've been asking everybody the same question, which is, what's the concept in NLP that has made the biggest difference to them? And I suppose more importantly still, what difference has that made in their life and work? I'm really delighted to be joined today by Maureen Tallis, who is the head of talent and resource. Apologies, Maureen. Head of talent and resource at Baxi. So, Maureen, I'm going to pose those questions to you. What is the concept within NLP that has meant the most to you, and what difference has that made in your life and work? Over to you, Maureen.
Thank you, Florence. Well, the concept for me that has been most powerful is the one of perceptual positions. And I first encountered it, you introduced me to it when I was training for my level 7 ILM certificate in coaching. And I went outside to do the activity. And for those of you who are not familiar with this concept, perceptual positions is a process where a coach can help somebody to reflect on something that's happened in a meeting or indeed plan a meeting. And the idea is that first of all, they relive or they plan the meeting through their own eyes. So it's what they see. So it very much links to another concept of everybody has their own map of the world. So everybody sees things in their own unique way. The second idea then is the person is encouraged to review the meeting through the other person's eyes. So that is why the perceptions change. So you start with your own perception and you're then encouraged to explore. So, okay, this was me. How did other people see me? So it's almost, if I was videoed, what would I see and what would I hear? And then the person is encouraged to think about, okay, so you'd be an impartial observer. So how was I as an individual? How was the other party? And then they can feed back with some ideas and suggestions for what could have been done differently to get better output. And as I've already said, it can be used to reflect in the past, but equally, you can use it to plan a meeting as well. So if I say, well, do this, how am I going to come over to the other person? And what would an impartial advisor make of all of this? And for me, it is a cliche, but it was such a light bulb moment. First of all, it was for me personally. And I'm quite a driven person and I'm quite focused and I know what I want to get. So often I'll go barging in there because I'm right. I know I've got the best solution ever for you. And it's really been helpful. It's made me stop and reflect. Okay, so in the past, how did I come over? How did the other people see me? And equally, I've started to use it a lot for planning very important meetings. So I work in an HR department. And I used it to very good effect when I had to do a home visit to somebody who'd been on long-term sickness. And I played it out myself. I didn't need a coach. So I planned what I was going to do. And the other powerful bit of perceptual positions was I imagined the room that I was going into. And I made myself sit there and play out what I thought would happen. And I decided where the other person would be sat. And then I physically got up and I went and sat there. And again, this is a real key part of perceptual positions. And when I did that, it was really useful, because the first thing I discovered was I was planning to sit in the wrong place. And I realised that I needed to be beside the person and not opposite them. So it was really helpful. And then when I then played out me as the observer, again, I realised that I needed to position myself differently. I have a tendency to lean forward. And if I did that when I was sitting next to somebody, I was actually going to be quite intrusive and quite intimidating. So really useful. And again, I've used it a lot to reflect on meetings that have gone well, so I can learn from them, because I think we all need to pat ourselves on the back sometimes. What is it I did so I could use it again? And equally, when it's not gone so well, it's having that honest conversation with yourself, really, about how did I come over, what could I have done to do it differently.
Can I just ask, Maureen, so when you first did the exercise, because I don't know anybody watching or listening here, some people will be familiar with the exercise you're talking about, and for other people, it may even sound a little unusual, even bizarre. And I know when I introduce it on courses, I do get sometimes some strange looks. Well, I'll probably get those anyway, but I get some strange looks. So how was, if you can remember back to the first time that you did it, how easy did you find that to literally get into someone else's shoes?
Okay, I'll be open and honest with you, Florence. When you described what we needed to do, I thought, good gracious, have I really spent all this money on this course and I'm doing these daft things? But it was because, and I'll buy into anything. I thought, okay, then I'll give it a go. And it was because I thought of something real and I was reflecting. I sat down and I was myself. It was the minute I went into the position of the other person, I was sold. I suddenly thought, oh, I get this. And that's why I said it was a light bulb moment. So absolutely, it sounds weird. And I will say as well, the first time I used it as a coach, I introduced it to my coachee and I said, you're going to think I'm a very strange woman asking you to do this. And I explained what it was, and the person said, great, I'll try it. And it was amazingly powerful straight away. So even if you're going to openly ask somebody to go through it and describe the process, there's nothing wrong with positioning it as being a tad unusual at the very least. But all of a sudden, people kind of get it. And once again, I used it in that first example. I can still remember that coachee, when they went into the other people's shoes, they were so very good, but it was, as the observer, it was most useful. And I can remember that person looking at me and saying, it's me, it's not them.
Yeah.
And it just was a wonderful, wonderful moment. So yes, in coaching, I have found it a hugely powerful tool, but that's when I've used it overtly. But I also work in an HR department, and I may look after talent and resource. But like most people, I've been around the block many times, and I've done everything in HR, and I still continue to do a lot of stuff around grievances and interpersonal disputes. And I've found there that my questioning can sometimes be, so what happened? So out it comes. And I'll often use questions then that takes people through this process. So I might then say, so how did that come over to the other party? And encourage people to think about what the other party saw and what the other party heard. So it's all about this video for me. And then my third line of questioning then is, so to an impartial observer, could anything have been different? And going through the loop again is powerful.
Yeah.
And I found that in that particular situation. And in the last couple of years, I have also just trained as a mediator. And a lot of the skills in mediation are around coaching. But again, my questioning can often be based on the model of perceptual positions.
Yeah.
And that's why I just think it is the simplest and one of the most useful concepts that I've come across in NLP.
I'm curious, when you're talking about using it in some of those situations, do you always get somebody to physically move their position, or just using the words to move people?
Well, I've tended not to ask them if I'm doing it in an overt way.
Yeah.
But through your body language, you can encourage people to shift, and you can talk to them and say, okay, so where were they sat? And they will move to a degree, and I still think that's powerful. So that's a great question, because I didn't cover that. Now, I do subtly get people to move around a little bit, because that then encourages them to almost become that other person.
Yeah, and as far as we possibly can, and I agree with you. I think the exercise can work without the person leaving their own chair. And I think, as maybe you kind of indicate, sometimes that doesn't seem to be appropriate, and yet you can still use the principle of that. I think both of us are probably agreed on the fact that if you can get people to move, the learning is huge. I remember doing this exercise with a group of people for some bizarre reason some years ago, and there was one girl, and when she moved into the second position and she was looking back at herself, she just exclaimed out loud, "I can't believe people see me like that." And we really did just have a laugh with her, not at her, because it is a shock when you get back into, into that other person's shoes and look back at yourself. It's very revealing.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And I would like to share as well, I had feedback from a manager that had recently been on one of your coaching courses, who also said that they had used perceptual positions in a disciplinary situation. And they said they found that particularly useful. And I was quite surprised that they'd done it, but they said it was so powerful that the person who was undergoing the process kind of said, almost, yeah, absolutely, I understand now why I'm sat here. And this manager said it was the most constructive of processes, because once the person did that, it then ended in, right, what can we do differently to make it, let us go forward in a positive way. And the person immediately committed and understood what they needed to do differently. So again, right through everything you will do in HR, I think there can be a need or a good use of this particular concept. Very powerful.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you that it's not for just simply in coaching situations, because I think it can be tricky for any one of us, can't it, to actually, particularly with a lot of emotion involved, to really divorce ourselves from our own point of view and our own stance and see things from someone else's point of view. And I'm also very mindful of what you were saying there as well before, how being able to take a complete step back and look at a situation between, say, yourself and someone else, the insight that can give you of the dynamic, I suppose, between people. And it's such an easy resource really to use.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, Maureen. And thank you for those of you that have been watching or listening. And the next podcast will be coming along in about a week's time. And I hope you'll join me then. So for now, it's a thank you to Maureen, and thank you to you for watching or listening. Bye for now.
Thank you.